Good morning, and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. In the room where the church council meets here at Redeemer, we have one picture on the wall. It's a painting of a man kneeling, and his arms are spread a bit as if in supplication or in surprise. I can't tell which. Also in the picture is a hand approaching or being pulled away from the man's face. Again, I can't tell which. It's a painting representing Jesus healing a blind man. And either it's a picture of the moment just before the healing, or a picture of the moment just after. I choose to hang it in that room because I like to think of it as the moment after the blind man's sight has been restored by Jesus, that Jesus' hand is being pulled back, and that the man is caught up and captivated by the vision Jesus has given to him. It seems an appropriate painting to hang in the room in which the church council meets, as we pray that we might be given vision for who we are to be and what we are to do as God's people in this place. As we grope through the darkness of this world, we yearn for the true vision that only God can give. This week, I am focusing on some of the Bible people who flit across its pages, encountering Jesus or his followers, and who have their lives changed dramatically. The thing is, for most of these people, that's the last we hear of them. And I am always intrigued about what happened after that. How did what happened to them change them? What were they like? And how did their new faith get enacted in their lives? Today we want to look at two men who were blind and who had their sight restored. The first is the long story of the man who had been born blind, found in John 9. It begins as Jesus comes upon this man, and his disciples ask whether the man or his parents sinned in order to cause his blindness. Jesus dismissed the idea that the blindness was caused by either. And then Jesus spat on the ground and made some mud and spread it on the man's eyes. In that day, it was commonly thought that saliva had healing properties, and it may be that Jesus did this not so much because he believed that, but because it was a way to let the blind man know what Jesus was doing and what to expect. Then he told the man to go wash in the pool of Siloam. When he came back, he was able to see. People asked him how his eyes were opened, and he told them what Jesus had done. When they asked where Jesus was, he said he didn't know. All the people who knew him before were amazed, but the Pharisees were suspicious and began to investigate the matter. They called the man himself to testify, but he just kept pointing to Jesus. They subpoenaed his parents, and they testified that he had been born blind, but they knew nothing about how he had been healed. Eventually, they called the man again, and he finally said, "Why do you want me to tell you all this again? Do you want to become his followers too?" Well, that didn't win him any favors, and they cast him out. That's when Jesus finds him again and leads him to faith. At the end of the story, the Pharisees are still there, and it becomes clear that even though they can see, they are blind to the truth about who Jesus is, while the only one who can see the truth is the man who was born blind. So what happened to this man who had been born blind? What happened to him after this? As with all the others this week, we don't know. And yet his life had to be enormously changed. While blindness had been healed before, never had someone who had been born blind been healed. Suddenly, this person who had no hope had hope. Suddenly, this person with a bleak future had a bright future. He was changed. I like to think he appreciated the gift every morning when he woke up and the light struck his eyes. So often I worry that God works in our lives and we become used to it and complacent. Perhaps sometimes we take God for granted or think that we are entitled to the good things that God does for us. I choose to think that this man didn't do that. I think he gave thanks every day, like we should. The other blind man we want to mention today was Bartimaeus. This event happened just before Palm Sunday. Jesus was leaving Jericho to head to Jerusalem, and a blind man, the son of Timaeus, cried out to him for help. Jesus healed him, and most of the time we think the story is over right there. But it's not. The story goes on to say that Bartimaeus followed Jesus on the way to Jerusalem. I have often wondered what happened then. Did Bartimaeus sing praises to Jesus on Palm Sunday and then change with the crowds and call for his crucifixion on Friday? Did he head home to Jericho before all that and spend his life praising God? The story has much the same point as the story of the man born blind. As Jesus enters Jerusalem, the religious leaders are blind to whom Jesus truly is, but the one who can see was a blind man from Jericho. And maybe the question for us today is, do we truly see who Jesus is, or are we caught up in the world's blindness? Do we give Jesus just a part of our lives, or do we give ourselves wholly in response to God's love? God's hand has reached to us in grace and love. Now that we see fully, who will we be? Thanks for watching, and remember to let this day belong to God.